Good evening. Welcome to the July 12th school board meeting of the Merrimack School District. Please join me in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next is public participation. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak this evening? If so, please come up to the microphone at the back of the room and state your name and address for the record. Last call for public participation. Next, I will close public participation. We will move on to item number, actually, before we go any further, I wanted to just say a couple of things. Since the last public meeting on June 21st, we received a resignation from John Fabrizio with a June 30th end date. Additionally, also since that time, the board has appointed Kim Yarlett, who previously served as principal of Reed's Ferry School, to the assistant superintendent role, and she has accepted this position. The board will formally address this hiring action in the consent agenda later on in this meeting. First of all, please join in wishing John Fabrizio the very best in his new role and his new endeavors, and then also a warm welcome to Kimberly Yarlett for her first school board meeting in her new role. Thank you. And then also this is Matt Chevenels. He's assuming a superintendent duties until our, I have to get the role right. We just did a
Chief Educational Officer?
Yes,
Yeah.
Chief Educational Officer, which is Bill Olson. And so he'll be at our next meeting, but Matt is assuming those duties until he begins. So
Yes.
Thank you for stepping up and
Thank you.
Keeping the district moving with those responsibilities.
Awesome. My first and last meeting, so isn't that something, huh? Just in that, yeah, that's right. Please, thank you for that.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I am coming back, right, Cinda?
Yeah. And then the reason that he is assuming the role of interim chief education officer is because it has to do with licensing from Massachusetts. So in working with the state of New Hampshire Department of Education and kind of having an understanding of where those licensing requirements stand, that's the title we have to offer him for now anyway. So I wanted to also address that. All right, item number 3, which is the revised professional development master plan 2021 to 2026. Please join me in welcoming Kimberly Yarlett, Lisa Perot, Chris Rowe, Jen Saucier.
She's unable to.
Okay, and Molly Esotan. All right, thank you.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So my name is Lisa Peralt. I am the professional development chair for the district. I've been in that role for a long time. I've also been on the committee for a long time, probably a greater part of a decade. So this is just a quick little overview of what the master plan is, the revisions and why we do them, the revisions that we've done, and just to kind of give it to you as part of that. So for those that don't know, the master plan is a guiding document that informs educators how we go about our professional development. How do we go about requesting to do professional development? How we go about reimbursing those that need or want reimbursement? What are the policies and procedures surrounding teacher certification and recertification, as well as our paraeducators? So this is kind of our guiding document as a committee of how do we handle the professional development within the district across the board. The master plan is to be revised every 5 years, just because of the different technology and all of the changes that occur, so curriculum and testing and things like that. So the state has given us a rubric to follow, and the last time that this plan was written was 2012, and I know that's a little more than 5 years. However, due to some changes in the district and the state level changes and COVID, things kind of got sidetracked. So we finally got back on track. It's done, and we do it as a subcommittee. We broke down this plan and we all looked at it, and we looked at the wording, and we looked at what was new and what needed to come out of the plan. That subcommittee put together a final document that we brought to our full PD committee to review. Then it goes to district leadership for review, and then it comes here for review, and then it goes off to the state. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Some key changes that we did in this revision, if you look at the document, it's kind of broken down by the first section is about the committee roles and responsibilities. We added an appeals subcommittee. Through my time on the committee, we kind of realized that some appeals, they'd go to the committee and then they'd have to go to the assistant superintendent, which at the time was Mark or John, and now it's Kim, and it seemed like a lot of responsibility to put on just one person. So we decided that in the best interest of being fair and objective, it would be great to do an appeals subcommittee. So if they appeal to our committee and they don't like our decision, then they go to this subcommittee and they look at and they make a decision. And if they don't like it, then they can go to our superintendent or our now CEO if they want to pursue it further. But that's something new that we've done. In the next section, when we do our IPDPs, or our individualized professional development plans, one of the things that we're asked to do is to look at data in the district to see what it is that the district needs, what are the things that teachers can look on and focus on in order to improve student learning, growth, or achievement. And so that second section in the document is all the different data points that we can collect in the district, all the different testing, all the different programs that collect data about how our students are doing. So we updated that. And then in the larger chunk of that plan is our individual professional development plan. And this is probably where most of our focus ended up going, because we've changed procedures for using Frontline with our PD reimbursement. If you've been on the committee long enough or in the district long enough, you remember these lovely little red and white forms that we used to use to request professional development funding, and we now do it all online. So we had to update those policies and procedures. We've gone from IPDP binder portfolios that were handed off to us every 3 years to having staff members do it piece by piece every year, a little piece at a time, and doing it all digitally. So we updated our policies and procedures surrounding that new protocol. We created a form for professional development activities that aren't outlined. There's a section in there that says these are the different activities that we will reimburse you for, and here's the information we need. And one of the things that we realized is there's so much going on and things that change so quickly in 5 years that we needed to create a form so that if there was new PD that we don't know about now, it gives educators an opportunity to say, hey, I found this, I think this is really important, and they can explain it to us so we can then look at it. We outlined new reimbursement guidelines and outlined new deadlines for the IPDP process, because we went from this single binder that was due every 3 years to a online process where we have like check-ins every single year so that we make sure that everybody's working on this long term. And then lastly, I just want to thank the members that worked really hard on this, especially with everything else that's been going on over the past few years. John Fabrizio Kim was on there, Marcia Kelly, Marcy Pope, Lewis, Becky, Nancy, Lisa. I'm thanking Chris and Molly for coming tonight to support me. Any questions?
Questions? Shannon?
Just a comment, because I've been the school board rep for a couple of years, and I cannot say how methodically managed this committee is. All steps of how this committee is operating, from how you process reimbursements to how you follow for recertifications, professional development on top of that, and making sure that stakeholders of different areas of the district, whether it be a different building or even a different role, because I know that we're getting support staff involved again, they're folding back in and really getting a nice voice at the table. So I just have to say, the work that you do month in and month out, it does not go unnoticed. I do my best to report it in a snapshot, but it doesn't really put into a crisp picture on how it moves our district forward. So they meet monthly. Subcommittees meet more than monthly sometimes. So the amount of hours put in are not reflective on what you got tonight. It's hours and hours and hours, weekly, monthly. And then on top of that, the communication to the stakeholders throughout your buildings that have to happen to make this all work the way, as well as it does. So I just want to say great work, continue great work, and this is a great document, and I know it will take us the next 5 years of our district. So thank you for all your hard work and all the work you do throughout the year. So I've seen it, and it's really impressive.
Thank you. Lori?
Lori?
So, same, everything. This is a wonderful. Oh, this is a wonderful document. I had some time to look at it. It's really well done. My only thing that I would maybe send back to look at is when we say, 15 days from the time someone's plan, I would stick with maybe just dates, like on, by May 15th, then if you have 10 people that all are in the process, the dates are completely the same. That just a thought. But everything else, I loved it. I thought it was really well done. The detail is perfect. I mean, professional development is so important for our teachers and for all of our staff members to have these opportunities and then to be able to document in a way. My only other question is, what system do we do? I know there's Frontline or that there's, My Learning Plan. Do we have just a system that's a Merrimack system, or is there a system?
So currently, Frontline and My Learning Plan are the same. It used to be called My Learning Plan, and then Frontline Education bought it out, so now it's called the Frontline Professional Growth Platform.
Okay, good.
So same process. We are looking into other options for IPDP. Frontline will stay for our reimbursements, but we are trying to see, because we're finding through this process, because we just started using Frontline for our IPDP, that there's a lot of frustration, especially for teachers who aren't familiar with it and using it on a day-to-day basis like some of our committee members are. So we are in the process of trying to see if there are better programs out there that we can do, or a better way to create these digital portfolios. One suggestion that we've kind of been toying around with is Canvas, seeing as we're using that in our district as well. So that is kind of going on currently. So you'll see when you read through the IPDP, it says the approved Merrimack Professional Development digital portfolio, because we're not entirely certain if we're going to keep using Frontline for IPDP. But for the moment, that's where we're staying until we have something better.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you very much for coming tonight. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, good job. Really good job.
Next up on item number 4 is the Health and Safety Task
Is your
Force.
microphone?
Oh, yeah. Next up, item number 4 is the Health and Safety Task Force Report. Julie DeLuca and Kelly Grassini.
Good evening. With me, I also have some packets that have additional documents in there that are referenced throughout. So if you want, I can give you the each of the folders now, or you can wait till the end. It's up to you.
Whatever you prefer.
Okay, I'll leave them right here, and then should you want to take a look at a particular document, then I can always bring the folders up. So,
Okay, thank you.
First and foremost, I want to say thank you for inviting us here today to present and have a conversation with all of you about some of our recommendations that came from the Health and Safety Task Force. And our focus is on the safe opening of schools for 21-22. And with me this evening is Kelly Grassini. She's a member of the task force and is also a school nurse at Reed's Ferry School. We want to thank the school board for your ongoing support and for your partnership, and we look forward to your feedback about some of our recommendations and some of the next steps that we would like to move forward as part of this task force. So today I'm going to present a little bit, Kelly and I are going to present a little bit about just overall process. then we will give you a summary of our recommendations. And then Kelly's really going to go through some of the current New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services data. And then at the end, you've already received this, is some of the recommendations, the more detailed plan that you've already received prior to this. So that's pretty much what we're going to map out, and hopefully it won't take too long. First and foremost, we formed a committee. In June, all members of the leadership team were asked to oversee various task forces, and I was asked to lead and facilitate the Health and Safety Task Force. So what we did is we built a team consisting of diverse members from all 6 schools in Merrimack. The team consists of 17 educators in a variety of roles and responsibilities in the district. We also have, which was very essential, 3 school nurses that were part of this task force, which was critical in the review of some of the DHS guidelines, as well as some of the dashboard, the COVID dashboard data that we looked at. This is the process. We created a team, and we met it was about mid-June, I think, right after school ended, and we met for several hours on 2 days. And in that process, we reviewed some of the models that were already developed in other districts. In this particular folder, we have a matrix that we developed. Let me just give you a sample. And what this matrix is, because something that I do know about the school board in my communications in the past, know that you like to know what other districts are doing. So in this folder is a matrix of over 20 school districts, most of them in the southern New Hampshire area. It's a lot of detail, but I figured that you may want more detail than less. And it's broken down by the various components of school reopening plans based on masks, physical distancing, also based on cleaning, etiquette, all the different dimensions of what each district has proposed. So in your, I don't know, if you're bored at some time in the evening, you can take a look at it, but it'll give you the details. We'll speak in generality about what other districts are doing, but this might be a helpful document. Also, in terms of process, we looked at the most recent data, and this is the most recent data that when we met was about end of June. And so in here, in this particular slide presentation, you'll see some of the data from the July 9th dashboard. Most importantly, we also presented this proposal to the leadership team, and they also had some edits to it. And the really good thing is that we were all, as a leadership team, 100% in agreement with the recommendations that we're making here this evening. And so I want to thank each of the members of the leadership team for their critical feedback and for their involvement and for their uniform agreement to this proposal. At the end, we hope that you give us feedback, and also if you could give us direction about possible next steps. We would like to, as you see in the bubble right there, we'd like to get all community input. We know not everybody is going to agree with this proposal, and we respect that. And we'd like to get public input and give an opportunity for the public to give comments and feedback to this plan. But again, this would need approval by all of you in terms of next steps. So you just have to hit the push button there.
Sorry, first time here. So the first thing we wanted to say is our plan, there's a caveat for our plan, and if the state or the federal officials, primarily New Hampshire DHHS, because I know that's what we've been following consistently, if they deem that full in-person learning model is unsafe, then we'll come back and look at this again. This is just, the recommendations at this point from what the data that we know. So again, like I said, I know that we've been following New Hampshire DHHS. So all the data in here is primarily information that we gathered from them, and it's dynamic. Like I said, it can change. Obviously, COVID's been changing, not quite daily anymore, but we have to keep up to date and know what's going on. So For our committee, our intent is to, our recommendation is to return to pre-COVID protocols and procedures for the 2021-22 school year based on the New Hampshire DHHS guidelines. And we are planning on, you'll see in the plan that we're planning on continuing some of the protocols that we had in place that we have found it's always good anyway. Some of the examples are the hand hygiene, having the hand sanitizer when you come in the building and outside or inside every room, and washing hands more often, the disinfecting supplies, wiping down the desks and all of that, the nurses evaluating children who come in and may not be feeling well, or if a parent calls and has a question. So those will still continue, and then we'll monitor the DHHS guidelines in the dashboard to see if there's any changes.
So here, this was also given to you in your packet prior. Here are our recommendations. I'm now going into my 17th year in Merrimack, and one thing that I've learned about our community is that there needs to be flexibility and there has to be choice. And what we are recommending are some choices for our community members as well as ongoing flexibility. And so the first and the topic that we hear most often about, and you'll see some guidance from DHHS later on, we're recommending that face masks be optional for both staff and students. So if there are family members that would like their students or children to wear masks, they would have the option to continue to do so. And if they don't, that would be a choice as well. We also are cognizant and know that the mask policy is under the purview of the school board. And so here tonight, we're just making recommendations, and we look to all of you for your guidance and your approval on that mask policy and what our next steps are. Also, in terms of students going to full capacity, and again, we want to be all in come the opening of schools. We very much want our kids back into our school buildings. Physical distancing will not be possible, and I think this was something that we were very clear about in March when students return, that especially at the elementary levels, it's very hard to keep 5- and 6-year-olds separate. To the best of our ability, we did, but this is something that many of the school districts, and you look at some of the details, you'll see that most districts are indicating that they cannot maintain the physical distancing that we had during the 2021 school year. We want to open up our school facilities again for our staff and our families and visitors, and of course we will have health and safety measures. Some of it, what Kelly described, continue to be in place because we found some of the 20 and 21 procedures were best practices, and so we would like to continue with those. Our school nurses will continue to be the point of contact for families as well as students, and our Director of Human Resources, that being Melissa Gagney, will provide all the return to work protocols and guidance for our staff. And that's not a change, that's still maintaining the 20 and 21 procedures. We will continue to maintain the contact tracing and quarantining requirements of DHHS, and our school nurses are very much in direct communication with DHHS. I think, Kelly, that you were just last several days, you emailed them, and so we're very much get direct communication as to what the requirements are. And if they change during the year, then we will be flexible and follow the guidance of DHHS. And our schedules, as we said, our goal is to return to pre-pandemic operations, and we'd like to have our lunch and recess schedules return so that there's students are sitting in the cafeteria. In some schools, based on the physical configuration of the schools and based also on enrollment, there may be needed plexiglass as well as other protective gear. And so we're leaving that up to the schools to configure as they see, but ultimately our goal is to have kids back into the lunchroom.
So in June, kind of the May to June timeline, DHHS started to shift their guidance to be more of choosing to wear masks or not. They started with outdoors, saying children did not need to wear masks outdoors. And then they, I think this was June 9th, the press release. And then to have the ability to set the face mask policies for COVID-19 prevention, just giving the schools that, they've always said that, obviously, but kind of pushed for the mask policy. But in May and June, they're starting to deviate from that, saying that it's, they're transitioning to I'm trying to think of, de-escalating is the word that they use, de-escalating the policies and have it be more guidance. And then I just wanted to talk about our calls with Dr. Chan, Dr. Daly, and Dr. Talbot. In the height of the pandemic, we had weekly calls with them every Wednesday. It was an hour, and they would give us all the updated information, and then at the end, we could ask questions, and they would answer them. Sometimes we typed them into the, I don't use Zoom that much.
Portal.
The chat. We could type them into the chat or in the questions, and then they would either answer them on chat or they would answer them live. It was very helpful. Then it kind of went to every other week, and then I believe June 16th was the last one for the summer, and it will be starting up again on August 11th, I believe is the date they decided on. So that's where we get a lot of our guidance and a lot of our information. And they're really good. If we have any questions, we just send them the questions and they'll get right back to us. It's been a really great reference. So as I said, in May to June, they started, the pandemic response was transitioning to more of a de-escalation, and their words are transitioning from specific guidance to applying general principles. So they're saying that basically what we are proposing is keeping some of the guidelines, but relaxing others. And they're really promoting the vaccination for age 12 and up.
And you can have access to many of the links we included in the packet. So if you really want to delve into the details, you can certainly look at that resource page that we developed in the proposal that has all those links. So tonight, I know that later in the agenda you will review face masks. So I just want to talk a little bit about this. This also seems to be the topic of conversation for most folks. So again, when you look at this from DHHS or DHPHS, Public Health Services, that you see that face mask are one part of the multiple factors that when they look at for persons' risk of COVID-19. Here, again, from May to June, we saw a shift in DHHS at the state level, where in May, they were very much about continuing to wear a face mask and physically distance, to a relaxing of that, into what Kelly said, a de-escalation of mitigation measures. So already in a month, we saw a shift. And of course, if you recall, that's the point when we had the vaccinations and some of that was going on, and so therefore some of the shifts were happening. And we're giving a lot of this detail because this detail is very important, because it's the basis for our recommendations and proposal. Usually I wouldn't go into so much detail at a school board meeting, but I think it's important for the public to see this detail as well as the current data, and for all of you to see the detail. Again, this is you, Kelly.
So this is all verbiage from New Hampshire DHHS. These are slides that we were given after the June 16th call, our last call. And so when they say we, that's who they're referring to as New Hampshire DHHS. And it's, it says that we do not consider schools high-risk settings at this point. And they have never seen high levels of spread in the school or childcare settings since the pandemic has started. And children are less likely to spread COVID-19. And the schools and childcare settings can choose to safely de-escalate the use of some mitigation strategies. The recommendation from DHHS, New Hampshire DHHS, the reasoning behind their lowering their, the mitigation strategies, the community transmission is, and risk is low enough that you can safely choose to remove face masks indoors as well, and would recommend doing so in situations where face masks might pose a health risk. And this, I thought this was really important. Individuals who are concerned for their health or people who are immunocompromised can still choose to wear a face mask. So that's what we're proposing. If you can choose to wear a mask, but it's not required. One more slide. And it says we continue to recommend a multi-layered approach. And it's not all about face masks. As community transmission decreases, the risks also decreases. And it is one of the safety mitigations, but as Julie said, there's all the other ones together. If we choose not to wear the face masks, that the other ones will still, some of them will still be in place. And the permissive recommendation is the biggest part of this. With low levels of community transmission, we want schools and childcare agencies to be free to choose to remove face mask requirements indoors based on your assessment of the local situation and risk benefit of mask use.
I think, Kelly, this is just pretty much the same thing about, and they distinguish here between vaccinated and unvaccinated children. I think one thing that I wanted to mention at the beginning of this, it was not the purview of this task force to determine how we would treat vaccination versus unvaccination. That is not something we looked at, and we did not want to distinguish between a child who's vaccinated or not. That is not a practice that we would recommend, and so I know there's some language about that, but that is not something that's in the purview of this task force to say, oh, let's identify some kids as vaccinated or not. That is not something that we would recommend as part of the task force, but again, that might be a school board decision for you to figure out that piece.
The one thing I just wanted to mention on this last slide here is it says if New Hampshire DPHS felt strongly that masks were necessary, we would recommend so. So they're definitely backing off on that guidance.
And I think it's important that we continue as a community and as a board and as a leadership team and as a school community to make sure we monitor guidance. And I know when the calls come in August, the school nurses will continue to be in those calls. So again, this is, I know the CDC published, timing is interesting, published their recommendations later in the day on Friday, July 9th. And for us in the district, and a decision we have been following, and not only for this particular task force, but for the year, is that we have relied on DHHS as well as DPHS, Department of Public Health and Services. And the reason for that, and even DPHS distinguishes, because of this, they're saying we intentionally deviate from CDC's guidance because of the local nature of this. So I think it's very important, and what this task force has looked at, we looked at local data, New Hampshire-based data, and I know the CDC is looking at a national level, and that is why we in Merrimack have highly recommended that we continue to follow DHHS guidance. So the next is just very quickly, we're going to go through the latest from the dashboard, and Kelly will explain what we mean by the dashboard and some of the data that we had as of July 9th.
So most of you have probably gone to this dashboard, I would assume. If you Google New Hampshire DHHS COVID, this is what comes up on the homepage. And it is a interactive screen, and you can choose what information you want to see. This particular one, this is Hillsborough County. So the information, the daily trend for new cases, there's 210 active cases, 15 people are currently hospitalized, and it tells you the total recovered, the total deaths, and that you can see Hillsborough County is on the my far right, is very low transmission. And the positivity rate of testing, I believe, is 1.1% right now. So if you want to go to the next one. This one has more information. It breaks it down by age group and male and female. And if you see the 0 to 9 and 10 to 19 age groups, the numbers have consistently been low. There has been 0 deaths in those age groups, 6 hospitalizations for 0 to 9, and 5 for 10 to 19-year-olds. So it's very low. But this is a really good website, and you can search and get whatever information you're looking for. You can break. I think maybe the next one is actually Merrimack School District. You can break it down by school or by district. And this was, did you do this July?
This is July 9th.
July 9th. So it shows 0 active cases. Obviously, that was before summer school started, but, well, it was a couple days into it.
Yeah,
but
it was
we
actually
haven't-
the
yeah,
first week of summer
the
school.
first week of summer school, so we haven't had any cases in summer school at all. But like I said, this is really good information, and this is a lot of how we get a lot of our information that we make our decisions.
So just quickly, again, this is pretty much the background that we already talked about. First and foremost, and Shannon, you noted this at a previous board meeting, that this has to be informed by data. And our goal tonight was to present to you the data as we know it. There's more data out there, and that's why we recommend we had the links in your plan to look at, and we encourage the public to look at that. Secondly, we know where all of this is contingent upon all of you, your approval, your insights, and we welcome any feedback and direction you have. As I said, as a committee and as a leadership team, we looked at over 20 school districts, and you'll see ranging from Bedford to Oyster River, to Derry, to Hudson, to Salem, all that is in here. Most of the districts you will see are recommending that masks be optional. Oyster River is probably the most stringent. They're recommending that we keep masks and physical distancing and keep all the 20 and 21 protocols. But I would say if you look at Bedford, because we're often compared to Bedford because they're close to our area. Wyndham was also another one we looked at early on. We have the same recommendations that they do. I think the Bedford has a little bit stronger language where they said recommended for students or children 11 and under. But almost all the plans are looking at face masks being optional. There's a couple districts like Hooksett, and I think it's Derry, where they're saying in some cases, until there's new guidance, we're going to attempt to try to physically distance for 3 feet. And some of the language that you heard for social distancing is now replaced with the word physical distancing. So that was a template that we completed as part of the DOE. So you've referenced this in your packet, and it pretty much, it already captures all of what we had in the summary. It's just more detail for each of the different sections. I wasn't planning, and Kelly and I weren't planning on going through all of this tonight. However, if you have any questions on this, because I know you've all reviewed this, we're happy to look at that. And I think there was a point in this slide, Kelly, that you wanted to make. Oh, we already talked about this. This was about the nurses being the point of reference for students and families, and the director of HR for staff. And I think here was a distinction, and Melissa Gagné was part of our task force, and here we're not recommending that staff continue with attestation forms as they do currently, but they also do what we've had students and families to do, go to self-screening of these symptoms prior to coming into school. And the extracurricular task force and some of the task force that are going on, for example, Matt, the infrastructure task force will help influence some of the decisions around bus operations and co-curricular activities. Finally, we value your input. We want your input. As we said, we'd like to seek public input and comments. Some discussion, and in fact, it was Kim who recommended that we post this on our website and have a form on the website so families can complete that and give us their input to this proposal. We like to then come back with a summary of that and have the opportunity to present again to all of you for final approval of our proposal for the safe opening of the school year. And so that's it, and we ask for any questions or statements that you have.
Okay, I'll just go right across, start with Vice Chair Rothaus.
So first of all, thank you for your attention to detail and your use of data. And my only recommendation would be if we could look at class sizes, because for lots of reasons, if we can lower class sizes, especially coming after, COVID-19 and the loss of learning, if we could get to what we think would be the best possible number, maybe some of that COVID-19 money from the state, we could hire additional teachers so we could really, the smaller class sizes are valuable in tracing and everything else, but also in learning. So that would be, if we could just figure out, do we have classes that have more than 20? Do we have classes that have more than 25? And what can we do? I don't know if we have the space, but, that's another whole other problem. But that would be my only suggestion.
No, that's a great one. We monitor enrollment very closely in the schools, so thank you.
Thanks. And then Board Member Barnes.
The only question I had was regarding the mask option and regarding how families that want their child to wear a mask, how will they be able to effectively communicate to the school? Because obviously if it's an elementary school, you might tell the teacher, but when the student goes to gym class, may not have that same information, art class, etc. So is there going to be a process that would be recommended to be able to make sure that all stakeholders with that child would have information if the parents want that child masked?
I can say what we did last year because we had that, right? All kids wore masks, but if there's a child that shows up, and most children, as I was amazed at how much kids wore masks and how well they did. If they come to school and they say, I need to have a mask, we have masks at supply, but we haven't really considered. We're just really mindful of calling families out and also by giving mask and having the supply available for kids. If they say, I forgot my mask, we have it available.
No, I think that I'm coming from a different place than you are.
Okay.
And that is that a parent, wants their child to be in school in a mask. Well, if they're on the bus and by the time they get there, they're going to take it off because all the kids are like, hey,
I get
why are
it.
you wearing the mask?
Yeah.
You know, so it's just one of those things. How are parents going to communicate so that the enforcement of their intention is followed through?
That's a really good point. Thank you for clarifying, Shannon. We have not decided that, and that would be something I would certainly want to talk to the leadership team around.
Jenna?
I was just going to say thank you so much for the level of detail that you provided. I looked at her and I said, they're speaking our love language. And you really were. Like, even for myself, I've gone back and forth and all around and thinking through how to handle masks and what to do and what's the best thing and back and forth. But seeing all that tonight made it really clear to me that we can feel comfortable, possibly going that direction because of the level of detail that you gave us. And even though I've done a lot of my own research, for you to come with all of that data and all of that information really, really helped. And I know it took a lot of time, so I just want to say thank you so much for doing that. I think it's going to help a lot of people understand where you're coming from and why your recommendations are what they are. And I'm very grateful for all that hard work.
And Kelly and I are here representing 17 members
Right.
on the task force who really spent a lot of time looking at this detail, providing detailed feedback. So we're just here on behalf of them as well as the leadership team. And it was a very collaborative effort. So thank you, Jen.
Yeah, thank you to the whole lot of you.
I just have a comment and a question. First of all, ditto everything that Jenna just said. And I appreciate that you came out with what we all need to remember, and that's to be flexible. if the data changes, if things go in a different direction, we have to be able to pivot and make good decisions. And I think following the DHHS is for New Hampshire, and it says that in the CDC guidelines that locale needs to take precedence, even in their revised guidelines. So I think that is an excellent way to proceed. I do have one question under screenings in your document. Correct me if I'm wrong, if a child was exhibiting COVID-like symptoms, they either had to quarantine initially for 14, then for 10 days, have a test or have a doctor's note saying they had strep or bronchitis or something else. Will that still be the policy for this coming year? I see that it says encouraged. I just wanted to clarify that process.
That is our intention, is to screen children, students, the same way as we have been, and maybe not as strict on getting them tested, but getting them seen by a physician, and then we would accept a note from the physician stating that they either don't feel the need for them to be tested or a negative test to come back.
Thank you.
And I echo all the other comments. It's clear that the task force put so much work into this, and, appreciate, really how you've laid it out for us and the research that you've done. And I'm just excited, just thinking about more normalcy. It's just naturally, as a human, it's just so refreshing and exciting to just start to hear that we are on the path to, what we all want. But aside from that, you put a ton of work into it. And I think, at the end of the day, we do have to have protocols based on research and science and all of that. So, and you've done that research. And I really like your point because we've all become very, we all have been very used to these masks. And even, I find myself even now, fully vaccinated and, still wanting to reach for my mask and almost feeling, where is it? And so, just trying to come out of that a little bit, is really exciting. I had a similar question regarding the testing, but I also had a question, and I think it's more about setting expectations for families around quarantine, right? So if we find that we have positive cases, and, or on our sports teams or things like that, it's kind of, would we still go through the same type of quarantine procedures? I just want to make sure that families understand that piece as well.
It would still, for the most part, be the same. We would, at that point, if someone is vaccinated, they would not need to quarantine unless they showed symptoms. Same with if they've had COVID-19 in the past 90 days, it's the same, but not much has changed due to quarantining other than that. That's huge, but it would still be the same for non-vaccinated.
Are the days still 10? Have they changed those days at this time?
I believe it's the same.
Okay.
I think it's 10 days, and you can test on day 6 or 7,
Okay.
and then come back on day
Okay, but we'll
7,
just
I
stay up to date
believe.
with whatever
Yeah,
those
it's-
guidelines are
yeah, I'm
anyways.
sorry, I
No,
have
you're
all
fine.
the information except for that. I even brought the travel information.
No, you're fine.
But it's, it's the same as it was at the end of the school year. That has not changed.
Okay, great. And then I think what I had heard you say is that you're putting this information out on the website so that our community can take a look at least what this iteration looks like, knowing that maybe we'll make changes, as we get closer or as guidelines change, but you'll be putting that out on the website, is that correct?
That was our recommendation, and we certainly like guidance from you about that. So it wasn't that we were going to do that without having input from all of you.
Yeah, I
Do we
think.
need to vote, or?
No, I
No,
don't think so.
okay, we're good.
What's that?
I did have a comment on that.
Okay, go ahead.
Because you have mentioned possibly soliciting input. So would there be a way of using the Power School communication push to put out to families a link to the plan, and that your input is welcomed through a form associated with that plan?
Absolutely. That was one of the things that we had talked about.
Great.
We It's not like the old days. We have several ways of reaching parents.
You
You know?
really do.
Yeah, we really do. Yeah, we have Facebook. We could put a link out there to this plan so the public in general knows what's happening. And then to target families directly, that would be awesome using our school messenger program to do that.
People miss your voice, so they
Yeah, they
just wanna hear
do.
you all
I
winter,
mean,
so.
You know, the following is an important message from the Merrimack School District. I'm sorry, I just have to do that. But the thing that I really love, and when Julie was showing us, I'm like, oh my gosh, because this is kind of like the linchpin that drives everything else. You know, I'm in charge of the infrastructure committee, you know, of what we have to do for sanitation and everything like that. And I saw there was a little graphic there where masks were a portion of that, but there are other things that we can do. And so, you know, I'd like to, you know, talk with Julie and the whole team, you know, and kind of convey what the infrastructure committee is thinking about. Do we want more portable sinks? Is that going to be helpful? You know, because at one point in time, we bought those when we could barely get them. You mentioned hand sanitizing stations where every classroom is. And so we can, if you ease up on one section, we can perhaps balance it out by increasing on other areas.
Like
With the
outdoor
hand-
learning or,
Huh?
like outdoor learning or outdoor spaces.
Yeah,
could
outdoor
be one,
spaces,
or-
outdoor, the tents are gone, but we can get the tents back. Because, you know, we can definitely use that. Obviously, during the wintertime, you don't want that, but,
We might
Yeah.
have to, if we go down in class size, we might just have to put
we
people in
might
tents.
just have to. You know, and as far as
Might have to.
hiring more staff, as far as, you know, COVID goes, to try and decrease the class size, that's a difficult situation right now. We all know how difficult it is to get teachers for classes, so that can be somewhat problematic. But each of those pieces will be able to be adjusted in order to support this. And, you know, the extracurricular expectations that we're looking at, we've yet to hear from them, but that'll all be a part of the whole, which, when the whole's put together, it should all work with your approval, guidance, and direction.
And is the thought then that we would just, you know, open it up for feedback for the next couple weeks and then
Yeah.
revisit on the
Yeah.
July 26th school board meeting?
Why
We'll
not?
just add that. Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds great. Any other questions or comments? No, great work. Thanks so much for coming out tonight. All right, on to the next item, which is, oh, thank you, that's great. Is the consideration of leasing PTA kindergarten
No,
building?
no.
Oops.
Face mask.
Oh, the face masks and summer instructions, okay. All right. I'm going to open that up. We put that here just to follow that conversation as it relates to the face masks in the summer school. So, you know, what we're hearing is we had a recommendation for the fall, and I just wondered if the board wanted to do the face mask optional for the remainder of the summer school, and if so, would someone make a motion to do so?
I'll make a motion. I make a motion that we make face mask optional for summer school, starting tomorrow, if possible.
I'll
All
second
right.
that.
Second by Jenna. Any other comments to that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, 500. All right. The next item is the consideration of leasing PTA kindergarten building to the Town of Merrimack Historical Society. Matt Chevenel.
Thank you very much. On the 7th of June, I believe we had a meeting with the esteemed and well-respected Charles Mower and John Listoka, representing the Merrimack Historical Committee. And looking at the PTA kindergarten that is no longer the PTA kindergarten, it had a very, very storied history in this town and a very important piece of Merrimack. And it's a wonderful building in a wonderful location. Currently, right now, the special ed facility that we're using, known as the greenhouse, there used to be in the past a lot of individual testing that went on in that location. But since that location became not adequate for that purpose, what we did is we moved a lot of that testing and whatever out to the schools. So there's not a lot of kid traffic in that building, because that was one of the concerns. Could we then utilize the PTA kindergarten building for that purpose? And really, right now, that's not a purpose that is needed, or that is not a building that would serve that purpose well. So, Merrimack School District and all their facilities, we're all part of this community here. And I'm thinking about, the greater good of the Merrimack community as a whole, and the impact that a rich and vibrant historical society that is kind of maintaining and archiving and displaying and providing historical lessons to kids, communities, to citizens. I think that would be the best use for that community. John Listoka came to see me. He brought some information that I just think is just incredible. Some of the items that are in paper form that would be scanned, that would be available. It could be a very rich and vibrant asset to the community. And I think it's really kind of something that could be kind of a little jewel in Merrimack, where kids could actually go on field trips there. What better time could it be for a child to be in a building that they're now aware that was moved from one location to another by this 1940s vehicle with all these gentlemen with, suspenders on and, from the 18-foot. I mean, it's just amazing. So I think, we could, and I already spoke with Kathy Peel, pattern a lease much as the same as the PTA kindergarten had to the Merrimack Historical Society, and I think that would be an appropriate use for that building, basically into perpetuity. So that's my conversation with John and with Chuck, Mr. Mower. I always call him Mr. Mower. I kind of have to. And so if there are any questions,
Shannon
please.
and Lori?
Yeah, I look at this as, right now we're in the middle of a fiscal year, and I think this makes complete sense. That said, I believe that the Merrimack Historical Society is associated with the town of Merrimack.
Yes.
So I look at it a couple of different ways. This is something that we should look to do a warrant article to transfer ownership of the property to the town of Merrimack so that they can take it on, and there's never going to be a question of leasing and rental. What we would be doing is, obviously, we have a marketable, and I'm using the term very loosely, asset. So we'd be giving up real estate, which is our asset portfolio, but in the same token, we have no intended purpose as a community to do anything else but make it the home of the Merrimack Historic Society. So with that, I think that, short term, we should absolutely do the dollar lease or whatever it
Yeah,
is.
the dollar lease until
Yep.
you can do, much in the same way you recall, well, I don't know how many years ago,
We got
we had
the
13
woods.
acres of
Yep.
land across from Continental Boulevard where Thornton's Ferry was, and we did a special meeting to have
The fire department
Fire
is going to use it,
department,
yes.
yes.
And that's exactly what my mindset
Yeah.
was with that.
and so this could either be a special meeting, or if you just wanted to wait, do the lease until a regular district meeting
Right.
came above, and just stick it in the warrant right there. That'd be really an appropriate spot. But that would
Right.
be discussion with the town of Merrimack, and negotiation with them to
Of course.
see if they indeed wanted to take that over as a full-time
But I think that's
facility.
something, short term, we definitely want to make sure that they have a place to go, and this is the right place to take them. But long term, if this is an asset of the town of Merrimack, then as far as the content of the Historic Society being the asset of the town of Merrimack, that we want to preserve, that we make sure that it's, we don't have to be landlords. We can let the town
Yeah.
have their place to take care of their assets.
Yeah.
So that would be my 2 cents on it, but it's absolutely something I think we should look to reach out to the town of Merrimack to discuss.
Lori Rocco?
So I think, to Shannon's point, though, I'd like a legal on that, because I think that there is something in the deed of that property that it got to the school district, and if the school district gets rid of it, it goes back to Dartmouth.
There is,
So-
John had given me a copy of the
There is some legal
will, which I have to have reviewed by the
attorney.
Historical Society, have to be reviewed by the, our attorney to see. I'm trying to pull it up right now and I can't get to it. But there is, it has something to do with Dartmouth.
Right.
And so we need to do some more research on that.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
So I think that would be a great point. But to your point, Matt, I think that it is for the greater good. I can see, when you look at the Milford Historical Society and the great history there, I can see Merrimack creating the same kind of vision. And I like the idea of having, you know, school children be able to know a lot about the community that they were born or raised in, and that they have that opportunity. So I'm all in favor of saying yes to this. And does anyone else want to talk? Because I'll call the question.
No, I have.
Okay, Cinda wants to talk.
So I have a question. So one is around repairs. You know, are there any outstanding repairs that, you know, our former tenant, you know, wasn't able to take care of that would either A, you know, bring the building up to code, or B, you know, make it fit for instruction, you know, of children, like lead paint removal or anything like
We would want to test for lead in particular areas, just to make sure. And we could do, it's usually on the molding around the windows and whatnot. The outside of the building is fine. So that's something we could test to make sure that, you know, it is free of that, and we could do an abatement of it. It's something that we could do before handing it over. But I am looking at I do have the will right here, and I want to get that through the attorney to see. There's a lot of, you know, the will is from 1868, so language a little bit different back then than today. So
Whoa.
I've got thous and thousts and everything like that. So we would want to read that before we make. But I think I think the whole feeling of the board is that we want this to happen one way or another.
Yeah.
And we will go through, and we can have it tested. That's not a big expense, and we could see exactly what we're giving them.
And I love the idea of the Merrimack Historical Association having that building. I love the idea of promoting history about our town to our townspeople, and particularly our youngest members, you know, to be able to take advantage of all the information. And, you know, I think, you know, from what I understood, there's just not a lot of space, you know, where you are now to be able to spread that all out and to be able to use that for field trips and instruction. And also, I think just location-wise, you know, it's closer, you know, where you are now is kind of on the, you know, at a corner of the town, and we're a pretty expansive town. So that location and the building, it's a very beloved building by so many people here through the history. And certainly, you know, with the offering full-day kindergarten now, it's really changed, you know, kind of the need for that from,
Correct.
you know, offering private kindergartens. But I do have one special request, at least for consideration, is somewhere in that building keeping that bright yellow happy face that they, for those that may not remember or be aware, they, as parents would come into that circle, the happy face goes up, and that's when children can go in, you know, all at one time. And so I just love that happy face. But anyways, but thank you.
So for the sum of a happy face
And $1.
And $1.
and a dollar.
And $1.
You got to keep the happy face and $1.
Yep.
We make a motion?
Yes.
Okay, so for this happy face and a sum of $1, I make a motion that we lease the PTA kindergarten building to the town of Merrimack Historical Society.
This is seconded by Shannon. Any other comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that's 500. Thank you, and I'm
Ooh.
very excited.
Thank you so much.
It's a big day for Merrimack.
It is.
All right.
Before you go on.
Yes.
For item number 7, can I just have a moment for you?
What, sure.
For item number 7, it's regarding the consideration of board policy review services by the NHSBA. And I actively serve as the immediate past president of the NHSBA, so I will be recusing myself from discussion.
Okay, great, thank you. So yes, number 7 is board consideration of board policy review services from the New Hampshire School Board Association. And this is just something, we have access to the New Hampshire School Board Association. I go to their website frequently. And one of the things that I've noticed is that there is a service that is offered. And it is a service where a staff attorney will review a school board policy manual and provide a written report that covers content, format, organization, and style for a $1,500 flat fee. And then really what that does is they'll provide this written report, and then they will also tell us if there's any policies that are required by the state or federal law that may not be included in our manual. And I think I believe it's a good starting point to kind of go through and do an overall review of our policies. I've noticed that many of our policies haven't been updated, in many years, like I've seen 2007 and things like that. So I feel like this is a good start to kind of say, hey, this is our primary job of ours as school board members, is to have policies and to have appropriate policies that certainly comply with state laws, as well as, other policies that may be relevant to, our local district. So I just wanted to see if, how you felt about that, and then if that's okay, if I could get, permission is what I'm asking for, to be able to, or Matt, to be able to go to the school, New Hampshire School Board Association and expend those fees to be able to do that work. Lori?
If there was ever a year to do it, it would be this one. As we are in process of change and vision and all of that, I do think we should make sure legally we have our ducks in a row. And I think $1,500 for that full review is worth it.
Would someone make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we give permission to approach the New Hampshire School Board Association for a policy review.
Say a second. Made by Lori. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Abstain. And if you recused?
Yes, I don't.
Okay. So it's 4-0-0.
Nope.
All right, moving on to the next item, which is the board feedback on concurrent learning. This is an item, we've had some discussion on in the last couple of meetings, and it's if wanted to see what direction we have for leadership, or what your thoughts are on the concurrent learning for the fall. We did do a survey with parents. There's a very small number of families that are looking for remote, first of all, and then the concurrent would be one aspect of that remote, or one mode of instruction. So I just wanted to put that on the floor.
You want a discussion? Yeah. So when we discussed this last time, I strongly would encourage us to go back to pre-COVID teaching and assessments in the classroom. I think that classroom instruction, when you look at the model of classroom instruction, the teacher needs to be able to engage students in the classroom. It's very difficult to teach to students at home and students in the classroom and get the same results. And so, I think it's in the best interest of our students to have in-person classroom learning.
Lori Peters.
I agree with what Lori just said, but I also think that we need to look to our leadership team to encourage our teachers to harness the technology we have adopted, the technology we have learned and incorporated into our classrooms to mitigate absences. So there's a variety of components that need to be looked at, and legal practices and things like that. But I think one of the things that we have learned through this is that we have access to technology now that can help our students when they are absent, which is a benefit. But I agree that the day-to-day concurrent learning model isn't the direction we should go. And we should be sure that we provide other opportunities, whether we're talking Play-Doh or VLAX or other opportunities for families who would like to continue a full remote option for their students.
Shannon?
I agree with Lori Peters wholeheartedly that I think we need to harness the technology to enhance the classroom environment for the reasons of absenteeism. Because again, we don't want parents saying, "Well, the test is coming up, and I really don't want you missing the content." And I've even heard myself say it to myself when I was a kid. That was going to be harder to try to catch up if I miss class, and I'll go in kind of hacking and sniffling. So I'm glad that we could use this technology to mitigate that. But we also have 39 families who went into a survey thinking that they could possibly get concurrent learning. And I think what we have to do is kind of let them know that it's not going to be, I think, as we presented it, and reassess the best needs of those families. And at this point, almost have like individual plans for each child that would have considered it, because they were, if I remember correctly, widely spread across 1 to 12. So there might be 2 kids in grade 2 and 3 kids in grade 4 and 1 kid in first grade. And so when the 39 kids added up across 12 grades, we're not going to get like a single program to fit all. So we're going to have to do almost like IEPs for those that are just choosing remote learning, because again, they're still ours. And getting them a program that makes them feel taught, because I think you mentioned VLAX, and I don't think that a weekly check-in with the teacher makes a child necessarily feel instructed. It makes them feel see how their independent study's going. That's a checkup. That's not a lesson. So I think they need to understand what they signed up for and what it would look like now, and what do they want to do about that. But I think it needs to happen real soon.
Right, and I think it's also, reaching out to those families is a good idea, because, some of those families may have changed their mind since that point. It's another month later or so, and there may be, a different perspective, on how those families are feeling. So, yeah, Kim?
Thank you. Like the previous presentation, I'm chairing the instructional task force, and that's made up of teachers pre-K through 12. And we've also been looking at other plans across districts, neighboring districts, about how they are handling remote and concurrent, and taking that data into consideration as we move forward. And so some of the families have been contacted by the administration, mostly because does your preference that you indicated back in May, is it still the same preference? And then we've looked at the number of students who currently have an IEP and or a 504, in consideration of, we don't want to create new individual education plans, for students who don't qualify under IDEA. However, we want to, provide, understand people's circumstances for wanting to have, full remote. And we'll have to look at that through their 504s if there's a medical condition or an IEP. So we've already begun to look at who is the who, and then the instructional committee hopes to present to you at the next school board meeting what the recommendations are around that instruction.
And that's great, because I don't think we necessarily need a vote on this, but I think that,
No, that's great.
to be able to have you come back, on the July 26th meeting and provide an update would be wonderful. Okay. Lori Peters?
I just wanted to ask Kim one question. In your conversations that have occurred already, have families, since they made the decisions in May before presentations were made their distinction between, do they want concurrent learning with their student versus, if they were fully remote last year with asynchronous learning, what their preference is there?
It's not pieced out that way in the survey, so it's concurrent / remote, I believe. You're looking at me, that's right?
Yeah, that's
okay.
correct.
All right. Yeah.
And that's all I'm thinking, is there may be families who don't want their child concurrent learning for 6.5 hours in the day, because they thought remote instruction would be different. And I think having that data for those families would be helpful on their preference.
Yeah, in talking to the administrators at the high school, they did a configuration of, if there were 13 concurrent students, it would require 90
I think,
Would
yeah, I
impact
think it's
90 teachers.
80 to 90 teachers, 13 kids. When you talk about all the classes, it kind of exponentially blows up into that many course and section numbers, so.
It's complicated.
Okay. Anything else on that? All right, we'll
All
move
I
on.
was gonna say, just real quick, was that I 100% agree with Lori, so I just wanted to make sure it was kind of known that sort of consensus is absolutely, I
All
would
right.
like to see that technology used, yeah.
Okay, thank you. The next item, number 9, is the approval of the June 21 school board minutes, made by Shannon. Do I have a second? Made by Jenna. Any updates or edits? I just have one. That is where it says present. It would be Vice Chair Rothaus and then board members Barnes and Hardy. I think it was just a typo. I think that's it. Anything else? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Did I see your hand over, Lori? Oh, you're abstaining. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. Any noes and abstain? 401. I got to smile like it was a yes, but I didn't see the hand. All right, next is the consent agenda. Kim Yarlett.
Thank you very much. I have some teacher nominations to make, and that includes Haley Fallon as school counselor at Thorntons Ferry School, Michelle Martineau as our new preschool coordinator for student services, and Lauren Moores, grade 1 teacher at Thorntons Ferry School. For administrative nominations, Everett Olson, who might be more familiarly known as Bill Olson, the interim chief education officer district-wide. And then, of course, myself as the assistant superintendent of curriculum instruction and assessment.
Point of order? There was a 4th name on the teacher nominations. Was that redacted for a reason?
I'm sorry, I don't have that unless it's in the packet else.
Hold on.
Oh, okay. Also Brent Whitney, math teacher at Merrimack High School. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Good catch. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda? Made by Shannon, second by Lori. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed. None, that's 500. Next up is acceptance of gifts and grants under $5,000. Matt Chevenel.
Thank you very much. To Merrimack High School from the Lions Club of Merrimack in the amount of $1,000. Amy Larkin Perez was awarded the educator grant in honor of Cheryl Pearsall. They are going to purchase a pro CPR training mannequin. So that is in the amount of $1,000 from the Lions Club of Merrimack, with Amy Larkin Perez receiving the award to expend that money. The next one is a very generous donation. They're all very generous. It's from the Merrimack Family and Friends in the amount of $4,000 to be used for the needs of students in transition in the Merrimack School District. And that couldn't have come at a better time, and we appreciate the donation. Again, $4,000 from Merrimack Family and Friends for students in transition. Thank you.
That's great. Do I have a motion? Shannon?
I move that we accept these gifts with our extreme gratitude. And just for, I think it's Merrimack Friends and Family is the name of the group. Just they get a plug for membership that they're, when you're Googling them, but I believe it goes by Merrimack Friends and
Sorry
Family.
about that, Shannon.
No, it's quite all right. No, but just as they're plugging for their recruitment, I want to make sure they know where to find them. So, but thank you. And honestly, I think both, and we talk about child safety, and it can't be more well represented in these donations. So thank you.
That's great. And do I have a second? Made by Lori. Any other comments? Right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that's 500. Thank you. Moving on to other correspondence. First, I have a couple of emails that we've all received. I have an email from a parent requesting a meeting with the board regarding a situation, and that basically I sent back to the building administrator and Matt Chevenel to reach out. We also received an email from a state rep regarding lifting the mask mandate for kids. And we also received an email against requiring vaccines for staff and students. Dr. McLaughlin did address that and stated that, we had no intent of, requiring and documenting, vaccines for kids. I also received an email regarding the mask topic with the hope that CDC recommendations will be applied. I did let that person know that we would be discussing it tonight and possibly on the 26th. And then another email highlighting other districts' mask policies and wanting to know if the Merrimack district sees risks as minuscule. I also pointed out to that parent that we would be discussing it tonight and possibly on the 26th. That's all I have. Any other? Lori?
I had one that I sent to you and Matt, just a question on New Hampshire scholars with graduates this year.
Okay.
Yep.
There is, if we could kind of rewind the tape here.
Okay.
There is one item that we missed about teacher retirement.
Okay.
Could
We
my
redo
esteemed colleague,
redo the consent?
yeah,
Okay. Why don't we just finish through the correspondence and then we'll go back to that.
yes, thank you.
Any other correspondence? Okay. All right, we'll go back to the consent agenda. No,
That's all right, that's okay.
you're fine.
Okay. So I also wanted to go on to acknowledge some teacher resignations, and that includes Christine Colburn, a special ed teacher, Colette Flanders, grade 1 teacher at Thornton's, Daniel Leone, school counselor at the high school, and Christine Tebow, kindergarten teacher at Reed's Ferry School.
Okay, and I think,
Yeah, I still have, now I'm going to go on to administrator resignations, which includes John Fabrizio, assistant superintendent of curriculum instruction and assessment. And then retirements, congratulations to Paula Corelli, a grade 3 teacher at Thornton's Ferry School, and Arisa Luhabi, world language teacher at the Merrimack Middle School.
okay.
Thank you.
We just redo the vote?
We'll do that. I move that we accept the second round of consent agenda as presented.
Okay,
I
do I have a
second it.
second? Made by Lori. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, says 500. You bet.
Yep.
Any comments? I have one, which I think, maybe Matt, you have more information. It was the back-to-school immunization clinic. I think you sent an email around about
Yeah,
that.
there was an email that's on Facebook. It's on our webpage about let's see, let me go.
August 11th from 1 to 3 at Merrimack High School.
Took the words right out of my mouth. I was just about to look it up. Thank you very much.
You bet. And that's open for
Yeah.
families.
Yes.
What's the date, can we just say that one more time?
August 11th from 1 to 3 p.m. at Merrimack High School is the back-to-school immunization clinic.
And they don't need appointments, or is there an online place to sign up, or do they just come?
It's on our website for more information, though, right?
Yeah.
More information,
Okay.
okay.
And then I have, there was one other thing I wanted to ask you, Matt. At our last meeting, we made the decision to no longer allow the public comments to come in through emails, rather like they would normally be read here.
Yeah.
I was going to ask if on that mailbox, if you would put an auto reply. So like if
Oh,
someone sends
sure.
it that says, okay, public comments are now being accepted live at our next school board meeting, and maybe a link to when or where our meetings are.
Yes.
Just so that if someone still thinks that's the process, they're getting kind of a heads up that it's not anymore.
Okay.
Just a thought I had.
Will do.
Thank you. Moving on to committee reports, number 14. Does anyone have any committee report? Oh, new business, sorry. It's a problem right here. Glasses.
You can share them.
All right, new business, any new business? All right. No new business, committee reports. All right, no committee reports. Public comments on agenda items. Does anyone have any? If you do, please step up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
I think you're on.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
You can? I can't hear me. there's a big smile on my face tonight. Thank you all. A 5-0 vote is way more than we expected.
I just need your name and address for the record first, please. Yeah.
John Listoka,
Thank you.
president of the Merrimack Historical Society. I'm sorry. I was so excited.
And then the address.
And
then your address.
What's that?
The address.
183 Amherst Road.
Thank you. Go ahead.
It's
You may
like being
continue.
back in school.
You
Yeah, I
may
know.
continue.
When I went to visit Matt, I said, I haven't been to the superintendent's office in 60 years. And he says, what did you do?
What did you do?
Nothing.
He had
really.
to see Claude Levitt, I assume, yeah.
So, you folks have made a huge stride for the town of Merrimack. This is, the Historical Society has been hunting for a home for over 20 years. We're in a one-room schoolhouse. We can only have a few people. Anytime we have a meeting, we have to go out and pay for a room somewhere. This is going to change what we do. And Matt was talking about location, and I think bringing the Historical Society to Reed's Ferry is going to help in the town center again. We're going to have a building that's visible, people can go and have tours, set up, hopefully things for the school. We would love to work with the school. And as I told you in our presentation before, we're all about technology today, and I know kids love technology. And I would love to bring video and conferences and Zoom events with all historical things that are very pertinent to Merrimack. And there's a lot of history that we can't unfold, show, or display. This is going to change absolutely everything. So, thank you again. And I can't wait to see what's inside of it. I haven't been in it.
We'll get the keys and we'll give you a tour.
Yeah, thank you, Matt.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Page. I live at 3 Nichols Lane. I have 4 comments, but they'll all be really brief. As the people who know me know, I'm a pediatrician, so that colors a lot of my comments. First of all, it is a 7-day test out currently. She said she wasn't sure if it was 6 or 7. It is 7. I would ask that you consider not putting pediatricians in the position of making the decision of whether kids have COVID without testing them. I don't know what the best solution is, because the way things have currently been, I know way too many kids are coming in to see us just to get a test. However, the symptoms in kids are often so subtle that to ask me to say that cough with no fever and an otherwise well-seeming kid is not COVID without a COVID test is something I cannot do. Right now, while the numbers are low, I would feel much more comfortable making that guess. But if with the Delta variant numbers go up, that's going to make that much more difficult. The Delta variant is my next comment. I think everything that they presented sounds wonderful, with the caveat being that you're going to have to maintain flexibility because numbers may go up again. As the variant is going through some areas right now, we may not be in the same spot in September. And then my last comment was, if you're going to test that building for lead, you don't want to test just the casements, you want to test the faucets. Lead pipes
absolutely, yes.
are a big source of lead contamination. That's it. Thank you.
All right.
Chuck Mower, 4 Depot Street. without much fanfare, you made history this evening. I don't believe you are even aware of the weight and the purchase that you have contributed to the future of the town of Merrimack. I'm an older guy, and I remember growing up in Merrimack, and I remember many of the local elders who contributed so mightily to leading this community. They are very often forgotten today, or thought of as somewhat dusty in our memory. But we stand on their shoulders. And we are now standing on your shoulders this evening. Because the true importance of history is it is a profound window into the imagination of man. And this town, for 275 years this year, has been imagining. They've been imagining how to build a community, build a state, build a nation, build businesses, build families, build churches, roads, parks, so on and so on and so on. So it's very important to have an historical society that gives you access to these things that other people have thought about before you. So often today, I think young people, perhaps because I have taught, believe that they are spontaneously erupted from the earth, fully formed. They are not, and as they move along and move forward, they will find themselves relying on a window to the past to guide them in how they imagine a future. And I stand here before you this evening as a lifelong resident, as the vice president of the Historical Society, and tell you that I have never had more hope and more spirit about the future of the Merrimack Historical Society. And while you may have felt beneficent in allowing us to occupy this building, I assure you there is a great deal more to it than that. And we are all in it together, because history happens every moment, each moment insisting upon itself. And we are moving into the future, and we are taking our community with us, we're taking our school children with us, we're taking our families with us, and we are recommitting ourselves to the kinds of things that truly have built this community and should bind our community and our families. Thank you very much.
Any other public comments on agenda items? All right, well, thanks everyone for coming tonight. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to adjourn.
I was going to say motion to adjourn.
Okay,
I'll
made by
second.
Shannon, second by Lori. We'll go ahead and sign the manifest. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed, none, 500. We'll sign the manifest.
Excellent.